Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
Well,
Well,
get things set up here.
all right.
This is the fourth meeting for this group.
I didn't know where we left off, but I do think we should finish today, even if we have to go fast.
Yeah. Glad.
Hello.
Mhm.
Um, what's up here? There it is. Okay. So, we're continuing with 11 paper and Josh Bongard and 11 paper. As I what's up here? Any other thoughts before we begin? We'll resume. Oops. Okay. So I know we've spent a lot of time going to the table, and close this. I think we basically got through table one and started kind of making our way through these sections. I don't exactly remember where we left off either. I see notes on symbiosis, holistic certainty, LLMs, things like that. I don't remember where we left off either. What's the next? Life is embodied heirs or not? And are these titles the things they disagree with, or the things they're trying to assert? I forget.
I think they're trying to assert.
I think we were at least around here. Let me just start here and see if we find our place, or we find the meaning as we go through the paper, like the one. So, machines are designed by humans. Life is evolved.
I think the subtitles are things that the authors are saying used to be more true and now are maybe less true, because this section about evolution, they talk about how you can develop algorithms that can kind of like create other algorithms.
I think it's sort of like
designs
outdated dichotomies. So yeah, the end of the last one about life, life unpredictable. Machines having 4 clear specifications. Instead, it's more so thinking about the specifications for the algorithms that build the machines much more complex than the algorithms. Canonical examples include specification of backpropagation of error in algorithm deep train networks. Okay, I don't. Yeah, okay. For the 21st century, machines is becoming increasingly difficult to write down clear sets of specifications for them, which spans all the possible ways in which they may change and be changed by their environments. Okay. Next, machines are designed by humans. Life has evolved. Let's see what's. Here. Invisible hand comes up. I'm fixing up my screen here for a second. Oops.
Sorry, how did Adam Smith come in here?
Oh. No, he's talking about, well, it does mention invisible hand, yeah. But they're using that
The
to
invisible
explain
hand of a
evolution,
free
I
market.
guess. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's the greatest way. Well, yeah, they say it's an intuition pump, which of course is like, a way to kind of think about something. But
I think the idea is that the invisible hand of the market is a kind of force that drives the evolution of machines. Like even when it's
Sure.
designed by humans, there's like a social force.
Sure.
it's still not a great direct metaphor for like evolutionary algorithms, for perhaps, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the point is that with evolved machines, you can have this huge combinatorial space, whereas with non-devolved machines, you really can't. Like, so you can reconfigure the machine, or the design of the machine can be in different modes.
This is the problem of somebody brought this up in terms of I don't know if you've seen this book about it's called God and Anatomy.
Okay.
It's a wonderful book about early history in the Levant periods, and foundations or formation of Judaism. But anyways, basically just like humans need metaphors about bodies.
Oh, okay.
like we can't escape them. I think that's where the hand comes from there. It's just
yeah, but I guess this has been a big thing about like evolutionary algorithms when engineers use them to make things versus like a traditional method. But you can find like optimal designs that you wouldn't have guessed if you had set out to design it. So it's like the idea is that it gives you this special insight into what might work. And of course, it might be something that was totally unexpected. But if you're using a multi-objective optimization criterion, for example, you can solve a lot of trade-offs that you couldn't just in a team of
sure. Yeah, I've seen geckos abstracts.
Oh yeah.
Okay. An especially powerful blow to the conceit that machines are a direct result of human ingenuity are machines that make machines. Mass production. John von Neumann postulated theoretical machines that could make perfect copies of themselves, which turn to make copies of themselves, and so on, assuming a constant supply of raw materials. Whoops. Oh no.
What?
I just hit the wrong button all the way down. It's not TAME, it's just...
Yeah, these are the self-replicating automata. So, yeah.
The 3D printers that print 3D printers.
The paperclip end of the universe, basically. Theory has been partly grounded in practice, okay? Many are comfortable with the idea that the internet, a type of machine, helps birth new social network applications. One defensible metric of technological prowess is the growing number of intermediate machine design optimization layers sandwiched between human ingenuity and development of new technology. Okay. Any thoughts about that one before we go on to the next heading?
Sure.
Hierarchical versus linear modularity. Living systems
Okay.
exhibit some structure and function, mainly different levels of organization. Um, machines and past machines maybe are typically seen to be hierarchical, modular, for sound, for engineering reasons, but self-similarity in machines is less obvious.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure about in software. It's interesting. I mean, I did just see the self-similarity in Conway's Game of Life. Did you see that? Or was that in Quanta? It sounds like something would be in Quanta.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. No.
But you certainly see it in metamaterials. I'd be interested to know if you see anything like that in what they have there for chip design. It sounds more like something you'd see in neuromorphic computing,
Right.
chip design. But it is, when I think about software, it's like software is, usually people write software in very linear fashion. And
this is interesting. Well, maybe, but biological systems are hierarchies in which each system is a component in achieving specific goals in the cybernetic allostatic sense, despite changing local circumstances. So
Yeah, so the example they give is of the swarm of tadpoles organizing and swimming in a circular pattern to ensure efficient flow of nutrients past their gills, but at the same time, individual tadpoles perform goal-directed behaviors and compete with each other, where their craniofacial organs are arranged towards a specific target morphology of a frog. And so this is like where they compile all these different levels of change, and they kind of work together. So that term holarchy, I haven't heard of that in a while. But basically, yeah, it's basically where the whole thing operates in a dependent fashion or interdependent fashion. So like the different levels of hierarchy are sort of linked together for specific purposes. So he says in the cybernetic allostatic sense of goal, which is where it's trying to do something like, swim in have sort of a mode of feeding or something like that. So everything has to work together. And so, I mean, they envision maybe a machine that can do this automatically without being programmed at different levels to do those things.
this is kind of almost a side question about this. In this sense, and maybe even in general, is when okay, I'm thinking cybernetic, I'm thinking homeostasis, I'm thinking allostatic. Is allostatic essentially relative in this context? Is allostatic essentially having a few specific states that are desired to be in, or that have some stability relative, like there's certain states of either functionality or optimality that are like ideally or attempted to be cycled between, depending on kind of like first gear, second gear, third gear,
Yeah,
or something like that. Whereas
you're in
I don't want to compare it to homeostasis as in one goal or just the process of regulating in general, but something like that.
Yeah, I think a set of interdependent goals, like, if you want to feed, you have to do a couple of things there at each level. There have to be kind of like sub goals that have to be achieved, and then there's this larger goal of actually feeding. So in order to do, like, if you have a swarm of tadpoles swimming, they have to have efficient, they have to swim in an efficient pattern, but then there's another goal underneath that to be able to perform movements, but that's integrated into a larger global goal. So it's kind of like local versus global for each level of organizational hierarchy, and you might pulsate between different you might favor one goal over another, but they're all kind of in that gear stack that you described. Yeah.
Isn't prediction also an essential part of allostasis? It's like the achieving of a goal, but also so I think of homeostasis, and I think like a system is perturbed, but then it bounces back. Whereas allostasis would be like a prediction of that perturbation so that it can stay at homeostasis or something.
Yeah.
There's an anticipation.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
That's interesting. So this case of the headline was something like, intelligence found in spiders or something like that. The actual meat was spiders were changing the web construction on the basis of what they predicted was going to come as in terms of prey. So it's like yeah, and that was their that was how they were inferring intelligence, or they were saying like this was a greater, like achieving a greater height in terms of better metric.
It's really interesting to think about that in terms of all those things, like those those like the fungi that take over the ants, the whatever insects, and they make sure they go to the highest part of the tree branch or whatever, and then that's when they release like their spores and stuff like that. That's anyway. So the conclusion of this section is somewhere along here. It is responsible for evolvability of life forms. At present, this is the real difference between how we engineer machines and how living things are constructed. Okay. For now, defections of parts from the goals of the whole system are rare, but this will not be the case for long. We expect near future work to give rise to machines built on the principles of multi-skill competency in a fluid society of components that communicate, trade, cooperate, compete, and barter information, as do organisms. Okay. Next, we have something that's not happening here. Life is capable of intelligence, free will, subjectivity, consciousness, agency. Machines are not, and they never will. Nowhere does the specter of Cartesian dualism loom more prominently, than the debate about whether current machines possess any cognitive and affective features usually associated with higher animals.
Cruse and Schilling, what is that reference?
Look, it is this.
Frontiers in Psychology. How and to what end may consciousness contribute to action? Okay. And a embodied, minimally cognitive artificial neural network. So this is, I don't know what they're using. Some sort of robot, maybe. Oh, there we go. Reacog. Hexapod walking. Okay, so that is a embodied robot.
Sorry.
So yeah, I mean, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I don't know what the experiments are here, but I guess it's they're claiming that we argue that already simple networks allow for properties of consciousness if leaving the phenomenal aspect aside, which sounds a little bit like they're observing some behaviors that are, not like they're not programming it, and then that's all that. That's properties of consciousness. I don't know, but yeah, but that's an interesting article. I didn't know that existed, but
this section is interesting because it seems like they kind of avoid the possible objection by appealing to like hybrid. Like they avoid kind of talking about if a machine on its own could be conscious, by saying like, well, you can have a hybrid of a living, clearly conscious system with a machine, and then that's maybe an example of a machine being capable of intelligence. But I still am left with the feeling that like that is maybe it's like a vitalist kind of intuition that like that is a real difference between machines and life. But the hybrid point is very interesting, and it made me think of a thought experiment that I've read before, which is basically like imagine a brain, a healthy brain in a person having normal conscious experience, and then replace one neuron with its electronic equivalent. Like, do you think that person still has a subjective experience? And you want to say yes, just like one neuron was changed, and it's taking the. I think it was an argument for like functionalism about consciousness, but it was basically like if you have the electronic neuron that is doing the exact same thing, then there's no reason to think that person doesn't have a subjective experience. But then do that to a second neuron and a third, and then at what point, if you imagine like the fully artificial brain, and you want to say like, well, that the person would no longer be conscious at that point, then you have to pick a point somewhere in the middle where the person went from conscious to not, or you have to explain what the fading of that of consciousness would be or something. So that's something I thought of when the authors brought up this idea of hybrids posing a problem to this kind of sharp distinction between machine and life.
It's now clear that composite hybrid creatures can be bioengineered with any desired living cell combination living cells or whole brains and real-time electrical interfaces into machine learning architectures. Machines are increasingly occupying spaces on their scale of persuadability, which ranges from low-level physical control to experiences, signal messages, arguments, cognitive sophistication, formalizing distinction. Formalize this distinction is the relative amount of energy or effort used interventions compared to system behavior. Messages, unlike physical pushes, require low energy. Okay. Modern autonomous machines require increasingly low energy interventions to produce useful work. A trend begun decades ago by developed in cybernetics. Indeed, there's increasingly large-scale ability in the face of subtle signals. Okay. Moving along. Machines can be studied in a reductionist framework. Life cannot. Interesting. So reductionism is named in this case until very recently, the fact that machines could be rapidly disassembled, repaired, reassembled is one of their primary advantages over living machines, such as domesticated animals or human slaves. Modularity and hierarchy continues today.
Reductionist approaches in artificial intelligence are rapidly losing explanatory power as AI systems assume greater complexity. What did he mean by reductionist approaches in AI?
Yeah, I think that might be confusing. like, is it reductionist approaches are falling short, or is our ability to understand
I was
the
gonna say.
reductionist is it our finiteness, or is it the reductionist approach?
Yeah, it looks like that's what they're maybe kind of getting at. Like you can't interpret the network anymore because it's doing too much or it's too big, and I wouldn't think of that as reductionism, but
that seems different. That seems different. You know, it's our synopsis of the reductionist approach is insufficient.
One of the things that I would definitely highlight with this statement, and I think the spirit of some of what they're getting here, is that this sentiment, I'll go on camera here, if I can make this work. Make sure myself is ready for this. It was almost actually counter, get this to work, my background. So this was Hojo's kind of summary slide, making this sort of holistic case for, yes, we do need to continue to study brains, minds, and machines at the Brains, Mind, Machines Institute or Center at MIT. And Hojo was kind of, I think, kind of playing a little bit of the old guard diplomatic case. And there's a little bit of energy, frankly, in the event, particularly by the big name. If you were in the hardcore AI research camp, like with the guy, the fellow from DeepMind, whose name I can't remember right now, the major celebrity guy, he was basically saying, yeah, brain stuff is cool, but what we really need you to do, it's sort of an interesting juxtaposition between what he was saying, what the AI research future panels were saying, and Poja was saying with this from the background. And I'm not I use this background not because I'm not trying to promote CBMM or because I think the way to go is that integrative thing. More just like I think it's just a really fitting reminder for myself of where certain discussion is. But what I'm mentioning here is because I think even for the super hardcore, we really just need to very, very, very Richard Sutton, bitter lesson. Don't even worry about this human stuff. Like focus on computational ability and as much as possible. The point that sort of is mirrored here is a little bit of almost like we don't need to have this amount of specificity. Like don't try to make it be too. We may not be able to interpret it infinitely clearly, and that's okay. And that was like reiterated a few times in that talk as the next step is that, and especially for like big performance in the big labs, Google, DeepMind, Facebook, like they're going to be cranking out performance updates. But the smaller groups like MIT's Center for AI, like smaller academic cloisters groups can do some of the refining of like the theories and how things are categorized or whatnot. And so I'm not trying to draw too much closeness here with that, but it's interesting because I think there is something that will be even thinking about things like a lot of issues in like AI ethics or regulation or black box or interpretability and so on. I feel like I'm very curious how will there ever get towards something that's sort of almost like this is a stretch and I'm very not finished my ideas about it, but we'll basically get towards here's sort of the expected health of this machine or algorithm and what it should do if it's working healthy. And we're going to track the divergence of this sort of healthy, holistic operation, not knowing like if there's a machine version of like cancer or disability that it's having. I go back to those old postings about how jobs of the future will be like robot or AI psychologists trying to dialogue or discuss what will be incorporated, or what it's doing, and almost it was a little bit, few years ago, kind of being a little a little science fiction about it, but still kind of treating it. It was actually kind of treating it in this sense, I suppose. Now I think about it, in the sense that it would not be studied or classified in a totally reductionist framework, or at least in the at least whatever they're talking about here, whether that's reductionism or not, and sort of breaking it down in these different parts. But this whole, you have to engage with it almost in the Maturanian sense from last night, at the organism whole level to understand what's going on, which I don't know. I don't know about that, maybe too far, but I think this will be an interesting way to look at even things like governance, no less, development and regulation, or trying to just diagnose what's happening in these future machines. Has anyone read, like, I'm curious for like what they're kind of saying by reductionist analysis specifically, or if any of these references are.
They do cite Jonas and Cording here at the end of the paragraph. So that's the can a neuroscientist understand, or can a neuroscientist understand a microprocessor?
Okay.
So yeah, and then it's even relatively straightforward machines are surprisingly resistant to analysis using today's analytical tools. So I mean.
Far more effective than bottom up. A high level analysis, okay, in terms of these features, may be more effective than others. We mentioned more. If reductionist analysis is impossible for current and future machines, what remains? Machine behavior. Did that come up here in this paper, or somewhere else also recently? I know it's familiar. It might just be from this paper last time.
Well, what's this? What's Rahwan and?
Let's see. Machine behavior.
Oh yeah.
That paper. Oh, Bonner.
Yeah. I think I remember that paper at some point. There's some big names at MIT and Josh Bongard and it's Nature or Science. I don't remember.
Is this something from? I got Tenenbaum.
Josh Tenenbaum.
This is okay. A few years ago. Right. Broad scientific research agenda study machine behavior incorporates and expands upon. It's basically, it feels like when I talked about quote unquote person study stuff, but from a machine point of view. Okay, cool. This call for holistic thinking is partly intellectual and partly pragmatic. Require combat falsify predicted claims. But also for new legislation, regulation, social norms, right? Finally, deeply social and increasingly biological components of modern machines further complicate reductionist thinking. Okay, predicting what these people are going to do. Nicholson concluded that three necessary features of machines: specificity, constraint, and efficiency, with a fourth and final feature, 3+1, non-continuity. By this, he meant machines could be halted, disassembled. As with the first three features, 21st century machines are increasingly resistant to reductionist manipulations and explanations. only achieve utility when they're placed appropriately. So,
Means that there's the utility of like a large language model is only in people using it in different ways. And if you just have it in the lab, I mean, you can generate some prompts, but people are going to modify it or train it, and that's where the power comes in, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I also get a sense that you will have to be connected to this greater thing. Kind of like smart home stuff comes to mind a bit. Like you're not going to have. I don't think it's necessarily true, but I think what they're saying is like you're not going to have a. I know this because I have one of these. You're not going to have a standalone, old style, dumb, not smart water filter. You're going to have a smart water filter that's going to connect to the internet and tell everything all this time and do this and that and the thing. And that's saying like that's going to be this. It may have a specific niche, but it's going to be a part of this whole. Future things won't just be this standalone appliance. It will be your smart home is this environment and niche that's going to be uploaded into that you're going to be inhabited in, and it's going to be connected to all this other stuff too. Something along those lines, I think, is part of that. Embodiment. We do, yeah. I think we're on pace here. There's a big thing here. I'm going to try to get to the conclusion with like maybe 10 minutes left or so. Right. Kind of almost there.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about figure one a little bit, but
what's that?
I'd like to talk about figure one a little bit. So
yeah. When are we gonna get there? Okay. We'll try to breeze through some of these things.
Okay.
I just lost my place here.
Yeah, I don't think I have any comments on this that didn't come up when we were going over the table, because that was kind of an overview.
So we're here. It's 1, 2, 3. Okay. Embodiment. Let's just kind of cut to the chase since we spent a lot of time in this space. Cartesian dualism, staying power distinction mostly due to the intuitive nature. Okay. Western millennial thought. A little critical flavoring here. Embodied AI has become to be associated with the efforts to run deep learning algorithms on autonomous robots. Talks about methods. Morphological changes occurring alongside mental changes, such as improved understanding the robot's current internal and other states. Okay. It's a pretty short part. Yeah, okay. I think, I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about that, and it's quite short, and we know that space. Yeah, okay, we'll get to this is the next major section here. Machines have clear hardware software distinction, life does not. I'm trying to see anything interesting in this part here. The result. Software, but not hardware. Okay. I don't know. Anything you want to say about this section, or just?
Yeah. Well, how does he view? So he's talking about like basically the xenobots here at the end of this. Xenopus lavis blastula. The fastest moving designs were built by microsurgery using physical cells harvested from the model that we just talked about. This resulting organism's fast movement with anatomical structure and behavior is entirely different from that of the normal frog larva. So this is where they're building their xenobot, they're programming it. Was this purely a function of its evolved novel shape and tissue distribution, not neural controller genomic information? Such an intervention reprograms the wild-type organism by forcing it into a novel, stable bioelectric morphological behavioral state, all without altering the DNA software. So what they're doing is they're reprogramming the hardware of a blastula, which is a early egg in the embryo. They're not reprogramming like the brains of it, I guess, but the body, which is a little tricky because what's the brain of a blastula? I guess it's like its gene expression profile, or it's maybe protoelectric behavior. So that's where it gets a little iffy to define like hardware and software. But this is what they're trying to get at with this. If you build some sort of biologically inspired device or biological robot, you can do things that aren't like, not in the brain of the system, but in the sort of the body or the entire, what we might think of as hardware otherwise. So I mean, this is interesting because we can program all sorts of cells. I mean, we can change their fate or we can change their function in different ways. I never would have thought of it as like a distinction between software and hardware. I mean, people use the programming term as more of a metaphor. Say we're going to reprogram a cell, meaning that they're going to change how the cell operates. But that's of course a program, but it's not really in the same way that you would have programming. I mean, they have people are trying to develop toolkits and maybe even what you might call software languages for synthetic biology. So people have different, elements that they can stick into a gene or a gene network and change its function. But it's kind of it is fuzzy. But I guess maybe I almost think of it as more of a metaphor. Maybe what we're doing isn't really programming; it's something else. But I think that's kind of an interesting set of points there.
I wonder if they touch upon that in this section specifically, which is up next anyway. Like, so they're I guess these are their suggestions for. Yeah, here's a section about that specifically. It looks like so. Oh, wrong section. Here we go. So our goal is not to etch in stone precise new definitions, but rather provide an update and a starting point for discussion. Emphasize aspects that we hope summarize important concepts. Yep. So for machines, any system that magnifies and partly or completely automates an agent's ability to affect change on the world.
I thought this was interesting. So neither in machine nor in robot, I believe. Like what I'd be interested in is a definition of agency here. Like what aspects of a machine would be relevant for it being itself an agent. And maybe robot is getting closer. But I think what's more interesting is the machine as an agent than just like the machine as a tool. If the whole idea is that the way we talk about the differences between machines and life need to be updated, then like aren't both things capable of being agents themselves? I don't know. Maybe I missed something, but that was a question I still had after this.
So they're saying physicality is not required for machines. The Cartesian border, one class of phenomenon or another. Yeah, I agree with what Amanda said about agency. So a robot would be capable of physical interactions. I guess a robot will be an embodied, a physical machine. Okay. Persuadability comes up again. Okay. Program is it typically conceived as an abstract procedure that is multiply realizable. We see no need to alter this definition except to state that execution need not be restricted to electrical activity on a computer chip or nervous tissue. Process may support computations. A mechanical process may support computations as well. However, there's a few aspects important for discussing programs in biology. Genetic sequence is absolutely not a program with respect to anatomical shape, but it is a program with respect to protein sequence.
I guess, I mean, that's a point that people have made, that you can't necessarily extract a phenotype from the constituent genes, but you can extract like function out of like proteins in the sequence in terms of how it's going to fold or something like that, which is really a hard problem, like for bioengineering, but also it does suggest that it's not what we might think of conventionally as programming, because like people will say genes have information, but then information is nothing like what we might say need to build to reconstruct a phenotype. We might be able to reconstruct like RNA secondary structure or even a protein. We're lucky, but probably not much more than that. So what is the information? We know that there's like genes are involved in building certain things. Like we know that like there's certain cell types or there's certain parts of the phenotype that if we knock out that gene we can disrupt. But other than that, it's like kind of hard to in the software programming parlance do like tracing of bugs or fault tolerance or looking at fault tolerance or things like that. This just is another example of how it's not really programming that we're doing something else.
I was trying to find something really specific about the software hardware thing to say, but I didn't see it, so if someone wants to say something about it, they can. Suffice to say, this whole section was then picking out their low-hanging fruit of existing sort of terminologies or talks about machines and saying, now ahead we need to make new things. So I might just move on. Yeah, the Escher quote. Okay.
Let's move on to figure 1, actually.
Yeah, I think it comes up here. We kind of had the context for it, exemplary benefits, and so on. Let's look at this. I'll say bad boy. That's the term is. So we've got A and B, and we've got this thing here. Anybody wants to?
Yeah, so I guess like we'll start with B because this is so B is where we have an example of the level of organization. We have these different levels. So the cell, the individual, the hive. So cells make up the individual. It's a different level of organization. Might have different goals. It's the same with the individual in fitting into the hive. So the hive is like collective behavior. Cells also have collective behavior, but it's a different set of goals than the individual, or is part of the individual. And so that's where when they talk about the different levels and allostatic regulation, that's what they're getting at, I think. And then you have these hives where you have mixed organic and inorganic elements. So you might have mechanical machines and biological machines or whatever. And then those exist at different levels. So you have these different effects. You have the inorganic, the organic, and then the cybernetic, which are the hybrids. It looks like, and then that just means that there's a lot of variation in a system being deployed. And now in figure 1, part A is what I'm really I don't understand. And I think it's serious enough to like actually ask why it was drawn this way. So they have these two axes, evolved versus designed, and high-level cognition versus clockwork, which I don't understand that distinction, but I mean, clockwork I think of as like, working precisely. What I think they mean is like, it's where you can predict all the sort of the moving parts of cognition. But of course, you still have this issue of, you could have high-level cognition that's like clockwork. That's how we kind of used to think about cognition. But whatever. The point is that they have autonomy versus degree of design, degree of autonomy, and then they have organism up at the upper right, and that's it. And I don't like it's kind of towards design, towards higher level cognition. But I mean, I would think organisms theoretically could be all over this both spectra. So they're organisms. Of course, if you go capture a tadpole in the wild, it's evolved. It's got some level of cognition, and it would be maybe farther over to the left and a little bit down from that X. But you can think about like organisms that have are subject to artificial selection, where you breed certain traits into the organism, or you introduce like transgenics, which is more focused, or you even integrate like a biobot into a machine, which would be even more designed, maybe a higher level of cognition than that embryo would have on its own, just out in the wilds of the of the mother. And so all of this, I don't understand why they put organism here. It's kind of like putting a square or X and putting like details. I don't know, but like I guess
I wonder if that's supposed to be like, oh, this is an example of where one particular organism could fall. In which case, that would be odd to illustrate that, because that's what the whole chart is for. But also, why would the prototypical organism would be much more evolved than designed? So that is very odd.
Yeah. So I guess the point here is that, and from what I'm gathering here, is that maybe clockwork is like what a robot would do or a machine, and then higher level cognition would be something that is not like mechanical, and then you just have that continuum from like something that's biological to something that's mechanical. Which still I would probably say that, but because a machine, it could be totally like you could have a circuit that can be cognitive. I mean, if we're going to be technical about it. Could you go back to the figure? You scrolled away from the. Thank you. Then I don't. So I mean that this whole area here, you could have organisms and organism machines and machines throughout the spectrum. So that would be kind of more useful to have like those three classes and say, well, machines can't really get up to this level of cognition without this level of evolution or design or whatever. And same thing with hybrid organisms, and then maybe the organisms themselves are out this way. Or there may be some down here, because there are some organisms that are pretty like clockwork in that sense. Like, you have single cell organisms that, although maybe they have like something that looks like cognition, it's nothing like, say, like another type of organism that has like humans or any mammal or vertebrates or whatever. So I mean, I think there's a lot here to unpack, but I don't think we have to do that.
Just so I understand, because I think you're saying you're questioning organism, not just here, but like as in that it could be at multiple one organism could be at multiple things as opposed to just one column here.
No. I'm not talking about B so much. I'm talking about A, where the organism is like high level cognition designed, and I don't understand what that means. Like any organism would probably be evolved. Sometimes you get like you can make like artificially selected organisms. They tend to have a high level of cognition, so they might actually be clustered over here. But to have one point without explanation and say, this is where organism is, I don't know. Maybe they're getting at this thing here, but that's not clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's confusing, but I think it is like, it's just saying, hey, let's, we can put an X anywhere on this chart.
Yeah.
Right, like, and that would be organism, not that all.
Yeah. Right. Organism for us means like something on the left side.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but
I almost feel like maybe it should be living machines, or like I don't.
I would definitely say that none of their anthrobots, their anthrobot is still on the. It would be below designed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
And probably not that great of an autonomy either. Like.
Right. Yeah.
I really like, and we're at a time pretty much, and I feel like I think I regret maybe not spending enough time on this ahead of time, because I think I've said it enough, but like I'm actually super interested in. I'm not beholden to any of the things that I've seen anywhere yet. I'm comfortably agnostic about many things, but I'm I think there's a decent chance that like if I do go into an actual legitimate PhD program, that it would involve things like this, or basically taxonomy across different arenas, eh, with a future lean to it. And what I mean by that is like I feel kind of a disservice that we probably should have spent more time talking about this than quibbling above. And I might want to revisit it again later because I feel like I don't think this is great, but I think I get what they're trying to do at, and I'm very much like I think at last meeting I put on my like whatever annoying hat of some kind, saying, "Yeah, we totally need new stuff," and I do think that's the case. It's just I think it's going to be one of the things I think I would like to do, and kind of been slowly starting to do, is like collect these attempts at making these new things. I don't know. I get the spirit of this effort. I don't know what I make of it really yet at all. Like I feel like I haven't really even dived fully into the ins and outs of what this really means, even in the figure itself. But I might try to revisit like talking about this in both what I think it means and then maybe ways I think it might be improved in the future. Maybe not in this group, but like as a personal project or as part of many other body of things ahead. So I feel like it's something I definitely want to come back to.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff here. I don't know if there's anything juicy in the conclusion we want to say. Data availability. Cool. Redrawing stuff, yes. Yeah, I don't know. Any final thoughts on this paper before we close today? A couple of minutes ago.
I mean, again, I'm happy. And just agreeing with what Bradley said, like I'm very happy with this diagram. They created something that creates these dimensions.
Yeah.
Right. like they legitimately did that. And I like this paper for helping us, redefine our terms.
Yeah.
With the problem that we're doing it in the context that like big tech has ruined all these words.
Yes. Very fair statement.
It's so so yeah, it's good. And well, that's my thought about this paper.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we want to do next time? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What's next? Oh, Amanda, you're saying too?
No, I was saying I'm glad we read this one out of that list of all the 11 papers, which we could just pick another one of those.
There's been a lot of good stuff in the Cybernetics and also the reading group channel recently.
Yeah, I found a few things that I would read.
Okay, if you want to pick it out, declare it. There's a few things. I might try to vote for something in there. There's been I would just say, look, like if everybody sees something they want, just like, hey, this looks really cool, and then Amanda can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
2 weeks from today.
Yeah, I probably will.
If I can wait that long.
We have to have some discussion ahead of time, but I think I might be actually literally traveling next time, so it's good that we're going to skip next week for me. But I'm happy to continue these discussions ahead, and especially a specific call. Like I haven't fully structured it yet. I am actually working on some of my broader, I don't know, white paper, broader aim stuff. But these sorts of things I think are going to be important. And that's why I keep referencing Levin's website and stuff ahead. But yeah, cool. And looking forward to next time. But I'll let you all go for tonight and good stuff. And I'll see you next time.
All right, thanks.
See you soon.
See you soon.